Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?
Hey, it's me, Egbert, E-G-G-B-U-R-T. Check out my website at egbert.com. Now it's back to those two dudes who told me they would bring in big ratings. They better are their history. Here are Brad and John.
You know, John, I feel so much better today because my hearts are gone on the computer screen. I talked about this yesterday, that our program, the guys who programmed our computer system, when I hit the little button that puts a little stop thing in where the commercials are supposed to stop and you're supposed to start, yesterday it turned into a heart. So today it's back to either a stop sign or a circle that's red. So I feel...
You know what? So for folks who don't know and didn't hear the story yesterday, what Brad is saying is that for computer programmers, it's pretty easy for them to get a heart on.
Not gonna touch that.
I mean, it's just a HTML thing, right?
Da, 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 da,
it might be red,
that.
it might be pulsing.
Da,
whatever
da,
it is,
da,
it's a heart on.
Da, 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 da. Don't touch that. Okay.
Whoa.
Okay. Remember last week, previous to the Super Bowl, we had Joe Buck, who was in the national news because he said there was going to be something terrible to happen in Las Vegas. Okay. Now, some people can say that the terrible thing that happened in Las Vegas was that I was going to say the Rams, but the Kansas City Chiefs won another Super Bowl. Some people would say the terrible thing was the elder abuse perpetrated upon Andy Reid by Travis Kelce. And by the way, have you heard the story about his brother called him out and said...
No, I didn't hear that. Jason Kelce?
Yeah, Jason called him out and said it was wrong. It was not right to do. And apparently Travis heard, he was on a podcast and Travis, chimed in or called in or something and said, hey, bro, you're right. Bro, he's a true bro. Hey, bro, you're right. I shouldn't have done that. Now, here's the crazy thing about this. Maybe Joe Buck got the time and the place wrong. Because remember, Joe was saying something terrible is going to happen with the Super Bowl. Remember, he got.
Oh, so what you're saying is that the Super Bowl message there could actually include the parade.
Well, he referred to what Las Vegas is like. There's crazy stuff that happens in Las Vegas. Well, I think sometimes those of us in the east side of the state think that we have the worst situation. Kansas City also has a very serious murder situation where...
That's true. They set a record last year, I believe.
Yes.
All-time record for homicides.
All-time record for homicides. So don't just think that it's just on our side of the state that like everything is just horrible and we've got this terrible situation where it's like murder USA. It's like... you look at the two metro areas between the two, it's not a good record if you combine both numbers. So going back to the Joe Buck thing. Okay, first off, why would he say, oh, there's going to be something bad happen? I mean, why would you say that?
Yeah, I don't know. And, when we talked about it originally, we both thought maybe he was just being curmudgeonly. And you suggested, too, that maybe he felt a little bit left out of the situation. And maybe it was, you used the phrase sour grapes. And maybe it was just a little bit of that, but maybe it's, as you get older, you just think, look, I've seen all this stuff before. I don't want to be a part of, you use the phrase Maxim parties, which is the second time we've talked about Maxim on the show besides Justin Alferman.
Right.
But he said that, he doesn't want to go to the Maxim parties. Maybe it's just the older curmudgeonly guy that says, to heck with this. I don't want to have anything to do with Las Vegas scene.
Okay, once again, I'm not being disrespectful to Joe Buck. I think he's an extremely talented broadcaster. And matter of fact, there's an interesting story about how he got in broadcasting. And if you want, I'll tell this interesting story, which I thought some people still have their guys that are still offended by this. And I thought it was a great deal, to the point where I'm thinking to myself, okay, more power to Joe, his father. But let's go a little bit further into the Joe Buck thing. Okay.
Yeah.
If you read the Post-Dispatch, frequently he is featured in the Post-Dispatch. Hey, what's Joe Buck think about this?
Yeah, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's a new documentary about him, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it so sad that we as St. Louis people or the St. Louis, when I talk the entire St. Louis metro, not just like the city or the county, stuff like that, but the entire, if you want to use government terms, the entire government, or the entire MSA, the Metropolitan Statistical Area, which is 16 counties, is it so bad that we have Joe Buck, who's our most prominent person?
No, semicolon, Brad. 20 years ago, we treated Bob Costas that way.
Well, but Bob Costas, at least Joe Buck is a born and raised St. Louisan, whereas Bob Costas was a New York kid, I believe.
That's true.
Okay,
fair point.
Went to Syracuse in Rochester, New York, if I'm not mistaken. Okay.
Well, I don't know if it's a bad thing, though, because but look at anybody. Look at a John Goodman. How often is John Goodman overplayed? How often is that hand overplayed in St. Louis?
But see, you're sort of making my point.
I am,
I mean, and the sad part of it is, if you go through, I'm always amazed that when we, and the sad part of it is a lot of times after someone's died, you read their obit or you read about them on Wikipedia and stuff like that. There's tons of people that are very famous, prominent people that were here in St. Louis, born and raised here in St. Louis, that got the hell out and then got successful. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
yeah, for sure.
Let's be honest about that.
Well, and you look like in the modern era, and I'm not a fan of this guy, but you look at an Andy Cohen. You look at a Jack Dorsey,
right?
I mean, just folks that is Andy Cohen in L.A. or New York? I don't follow him.
I don't know where he's at. Matter of fact, he came out yesterday. He was tweeting yesterday. Look at we need guns. Here we go.
Oh, are you serious?
No,
I'm not surprised by that.
No, he came out. He's tweeting. Look what's happening in Kansas City with guns. Yeah. Here's the sad part of this is that. Why don't you hear robberies at gun stores? And first off, except for like Cabela's and places like that, if you go to most gun stores, you ever been to a gun store, like a true, locally owned and operated gun store?
Have.
Okay. What do you notice about everybody who works there?
They're carrying.
They're got a gun on their hip. Exactly, right. So the idea being is that unless you are a psycho, the chances of someone going in and robbing a gun...
Unless you want to get shot.
Right.
Unless your intention is to get killed.
Right. Unless you have a suicide wish, you don't go rob a gun store, because of the fact that you're going to end up with some lead coming through your body, okay? Once again, I mean, you think about that, okay? For example, if you decide you're going to go rob a Brinks car, a Brinks truck, okay? Mm-hmm. Chances are you're going to get shot because the Brinks guys have guns. And the whole crazy thing is like the Cori Bush. She doesn't want police. She doesn't want guns, but yet she wants her security detail to have have armament, have guns and ballistic vests and stuff like that.
That's because she deals with white supremacists all the time, Brad. So have a little bit of compassion. I interrupted your Joe Buck story. But we were talking about Joe Buck. I interrupted you.
I just think it's, the whole thing about it is, why does he say, I don't understand what he's going off with the thing. And he's making it, I haven't been to Las Vegas in several years now. I can't remember the last time I was there. I love Las Vegas. I'm not a gambler. I'm not a person that goes to the brothels, or do I partake in prostitution. I love Las Vegas because it's, first off, from an aesthetic from my father. My father was a civil engineer. It's an engineering marvel. If you look at the buildings, and like with a new Sphere, I'd like to see the Sphere up close and personal.
Me too.
You look at the buildings, you look at the Luxor, you look at all these buildings, it's an engineering marvel, okay? Second off, like I've told this before, when you get off the plane, maybe it's just me, when you walk off the jetway and you're in that airport, there's something about the vibe from the minute you walk off the plane. It's like, wow.
Absolutely.
This place is different, okay? First off, geographically, it's very pretty because of the fact it's like in a what do you call it, like a bowl, or it's like in a valley or something like that.
Yeah, like a crater almost.
Right, and there's mountains all around it. It, at night, like at sunset, you can look, and any direction you look, you can see mountains, okay? And thirdly, it never closes. See,
you can get a good burger or pizza or anything. It's like Times Square in that regard.
Right. It's always open. And we had that in St. Louis to a large degree with a lot of things, with Schnucks and places like that. After the pandemic, gone. I mean, most of the places that are open 24 hours are not open 24 hours anymore. Remember, when the pandemic was going on, most of them had reduced hours. Like Schnucks,
you can only shop in a short window, for sure.
Schnucks still opened to like 9 o'clock in the morning, closed at 6 o'clock in the evening. Wasn't that for a while? Wasn't that the deal?
Yeah, that was for a long time.
And then they moved to like 7, and now they're still at 10. So in other words, and once again, I say this because of the fact that I didn't tell this story on the air. I ran into Mayor Nick Guccione from Wentzville last week, and it's funny. Nick is a North County guy, as I'm on North County. You're a North County guy, and I talked about the fact, and Nick didn't know this story, that the White Castle in Florissant was the only White Castle in the country that closed at night. Why? Because of the time Mayor Egan, who was, ran back in the day, ran Florissant with an iron hand. When they wanted to put a White Castle in Florissant, Mayor Egan went, no, we don't want a 24-hour restaurant because there's nothing good that happens between midnight and 6. So
the riffraff would definitely be coming to Florissant to buy some White Castles.
Right, they'd be sitting in the parking lot.
The troublemakers would flock for a White Castle.
Right, cleaning their guns, in the parking lot. Right, so they closed the White Castle from 2 to 6. Okay, I can tell you, in my younger years, one year I was out, and this is sort of unusual for me. I was out for New Year's Eve at a party or something like that, and it was up in North County, and the party was over, and it was 1:30, and we decided, hey, let's go get something at White Castle. So I didn't even think about this. We go to White Castle, and it's like 10 minutes to 2, and we go inside to order, and at 2 o'clock, the manager goes and locks the doors, and there are people coming up to the White Castle, most of them highly intoxicated, who want to get in, and they can't because the doors are locked, and they start beating on the windows so hard that I thought to myself, they're going to break the windows. We're going to be in here, and it's going to be a riot, and I'm going to say, I was at the White Castle in Florissant when they had the riot at 3 o'clock in the morning. See, just because some places open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, I'm a guy, my past experiences of working in the restaurant business, working in the police business, working in the radio business, there's lots of good people doing lots of important things between midnight and 6.
Hospital workers, firefighters, police, anybody people that have to fix stuff overnight, absolutely.
Well, nowadays, you've got all the data processing, MIS, IT, whatever you want to call it nowadays. I mean, they're running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Matter of fact, I don't know if you know this or not, that's what Tracy Ellis's husband, that's what Rick Ellis did.
I didn't know that. No.
He was like a IT guy, and he ran
and for Enterprise, right?
Right, for Enterprise, and
you're right. I do remember you telling me that.
He was like a night manager. He was like the guy that supervised. Like at night, they did a lot of maintenance on the computers and
because the stuff's got to run overnight.
Right, but for them, once again, they're in a 24/7 business because when you land at an airport, you land at LAX at 4 o'clock in the morning. Guess what? Enterprise is open.
You got to get a rental car, and the database has to be up, and the background stuff has to be up,
as well as Hertz and Avis and all the rest of them. They're running 24/7.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
I don't know. Like I said, I go back to the Joe Buck thing. I just sort of shake my head and think to myself, why did he do that? I don't understand it. And once again, is it? Here's the interesting thing, from a journalistic standpoint, are you going like, hey, let's interview Joe Buck? Maybe he'll say something controversial because he's not doing and so are you in the Tony Romo camp? Do you know the whole Tony Romo thing?
Oh, about how poorly he did during the Super Bowl?
Well, supposedly everybody, the sports fans hate him. And supposedly, I didn't watch this, so I don't know. Supposedly, that when the game was over and Kansas City won, he didn't know that. That was the story that I've read. And supposedly the San Francisco players didn't know it either. Do you know this whole crazy weird story?
No, I didn't hear this at all.
Oh yeah,
when the game ended, they didn't know it ended. I missed this.
They didn't know it ended because they changed the rules. And the interesting thing was, the story came out that Kansas City, that Andy Reid had practiced this. They had practiced an overtime scenario, and they had told their players, here's the new rules, here's what happens when we go into overtime, okay? And San Francisco did not. And the crazy part of it is, who's the guy that you remember who threw the pass that Mahomes threw the pass, but you don't know who caught the pass. The story is the dude, whoever the Kansas City guy is, who wasn't Travis Kelce, who caught the pass that won the Super Bowl, didn't realize he had just won the Super Bowl.
Because he thought that the 49ers would get another shot.
Exactly. They thought it was because the old thing was you went back and forth. You went back and forth.
That's right. And the other and I think of that every time the NFL goes into overtime. I never remember what the rules are because I'm not that big. I'm not a big enough football fan to remember to keep up. These days I'm certainly not. But I remember I thought the idea was, well, San Francisco should have made a different decision because you want to see what the other team does because that affects what you're going to do on third down and fourth down.
Yes, and when they talked to the San Francisco coach, he essentially said that he had taken that into consideration, but he felt that they had the momentum going for them. And they were coming off the fact that let's be honest, most of the game, I think the 49ers outplayed the Kansas City Chiefs.
For sure.
And that's why the whole thing happened with Travis Kelce, because he was mad because there were fumbles, they were making mistakes, there were drop balls, and they just didn't look good. And San Francisco, for the most part, although they weren't flashy or anything like that,
they played a good game.
Although they did have that one trick play where they really made the Kansas City Chiefs look pretty bad. But for the most part, I think they outplayed the Kansas City Chiefs. But who knows? Once again, it's interesting. On Monday morning, after you and I got off the air, if you listen to Armstrong and Getty when they come on right after us, what's sad about this is that these guys are two radio pros. And what do they start talking about? They start talking about, hey, here's what's going to be on all the sports talk stations this morning. Is Patrick Mahomes the next GOAT? Is he the next generation of Tom Brady?
Of dynastic quarterbacks.
Right.
Yeah. Is he the next Joe Montana?
Right. Is he the next Joe Montana? Is he the next Tom Brady? And you're going like, okay, he's won. He looks pretty good. But remember, Tom Brady is what? 7 Super Bowl rings, something like that.
It's not even close.
I mean, he's got a ways to go still. Joe Montana, once again, you go back in history and you go like, okay, how soon they forget,
Yeah, but it's the newest, hottest thing. And
right.
And
don't get me wrong, I'm not demeaning the fact that it's incredible what the Kansas City Chiefs have done, and once again, the whole Patrick Mahomes thing,
Absolutely.
I mean, but yet it's to the point where it's like, okay, when we get about 3 or 4 more Super Bowls, maybe we'll talk about GOATs. You know what I mean? At that point.
Yeah, and also too, let's go back to what we learned from Paramount the other day, which is this is the widest. More people watch the Super Bowl this year than any other year, and you better hope the Chiefs are back in the Super Bowl next year. You better hope Travis and Taylor are still together if you want those viewership numbers.
Boy, and just one quick thing: can you imagine if Taylor Swift would have been in KC yesterday? Oh man.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, but just think of how more swiftly the calls for gun control would be.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We almost lost our princess.
I shouldn't laugh at that, but that is sad. Okay, we have to take a break.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?